When are they going to come for you? The USA is retooling its justice system for what appears to be totalitarian control. Now, the news cycles of the past few months have been full of stories about raids and arrests of a major political figure. I think you know who I'm talking about. And those stories are scintillating with intrigue. Is this figure guilty of a crime? Was this a politically motivated arrest? Is the USA becoming a banana republic? Will this figure be able to run for office, etc., etc., etc.? That's why these stories dominate our news cycles. But below the layers of what was happening politically is what is happening systematically to our world. It is a sign that a police state is being built, one piece at a time, to provide totalitarian control of your life and my life. Pay attention. This is very important. It's obvious that a coordinated conspiracy has been at work to create an environment of control. When you consider these 4 areas of our law and order system being manipulated simultaneously, it is obvious that something is afoot. This is much more serious change to our system than anyone is really imagining. The 4 areas start from the ground up. The actual police force is being changed. The people doing the policing, aren't the same that they were just a couple years ago. Next, the district attorneys in our cities are being systematically changed. This feeds the court system, which is being filled with corrupt judges. And then finally, at the top of the pyramid is the Department of Justice and the FBI and the CIA. The guys and gals who get all the publicity for raids, the Twitter files, etc. First, the George Floyd riots gave rise to a defund the police movement. This was not accidental. I'm not saying that George Floyd was some kind of manipulated event, although it could have been. Rather, I'm saying they were waiting for an event like that to take advantage of this to change our police force. So, like I said, it wasn't an accident. It was intentional change in our police forcing. The media was just waiting for the right opportunity to launch a hate the police, blame the police movement. This has in turn led to a mass exodus from the police force. Who were these men and women who left the force? They were the backbone of law and order in the USA. People who had spent a lifetime protecting justice, fairness, protecting your neighborhoods and mine. But many had their jobs eliminated by the defunding, and many others simply chose retirement rather than to continue to live under the social pressure of political correctness and a scrutiny of each and every move they made. I know several of these men personally. They are the salt of the earth, and they just walked away. But these faithful policemen and women will be replaced. Who will they be replaced with? Those who favor a politically correct approach, naturally. The literal boots on the ground of our police forces are being changed one by one into these people who will be loyal to the totalitarians in government. The former police may have been unwilling to do what these new politically correct officers will be asked to do. So the plan has been to replace the entire police force. Not only are the policemen being changed, but our unelected bureaucrats are being armed. 87,000 new IRS agents are not only being hired, but armed. As we reported in this previous video, almost $3 billion is being spent on military equipment to arm bureaucrats. Groups like the Railroad Retirement Board are being armed. We have to ask why. It appears to create a force of brown shirts to enforce the regime's policies that police may not even be willing to carry out. So that's the first level. The second level of coordinated change is at the local district attorney level. These are the men who decide who gets charged with a crime and who goes free. The fact that globalist George Soros is funding the elections of these corrupt DAs is a sign that a conspiracy is afoot. Why would a globalist, somebody who's not even from the USA, fund the elections of district attorneys in the USA? Is he worried about crime? Absolutely not. He helped install Kim Foxx of Chicago, Larry Krasner of Philadelphia, Chesa Boudin of San Francisco, George Gascon in LA, and Alvin Bragg in New York. Alvin Bragg should be a familiar name. He is the one who accused that political figure recently. If this so-called trial seems unfair in some ways, well, guess what? It's supposed to look unfair. That's the whole point, in my opinion, to make you think anyone can be brought to trial. If it happens to a prominent political figure, what will they do to you? When will they do it to you? Remember, none of this is about these national events. They're staged. The events are utilized to seize control and then to terrorize the masses into doing what they want. All these towns have seen historic crime spikes. Just a coincidence? I think not. So it is a combined effort to free the real criminals and to persecute those who oppose a totalitarian takeover. So that's the second level. The third level of coordinated change is at the court level. We see that happening in the Mar-a-Lago incident. A corrupt judge allowed the raid, which we now see was nothing but politically motivated. But what about you and me? Sure, Trump makes the news, but similar judges are in place all over the USA to permit unlawful seizures, break-ins of our homes and businesses. It is very interesting that the Jewish histories of Sodom and Gomorrah indicate that a corrupt legal system was a big part of the problem there. Now, granted, these accounts don't come from canonical books, but they probably point to something like the truth. Maybe not the whole truth like Scripture does, but something like it. Look at this account from the book of Jasher. And a poor man came into the city to seek a maintenance, and he remained in the city some days. And all the people of Sodom caused a proclamation of their custom not to give this man a morsel of bread to eat until he dropped dead upon the earth. And they did so. And Palith, the daughter of Lot, saw the man lying in the street, starved with hunger, and no one would give him anything to keep him alive. And he was just upon the point of death, and her soul was filled with pity on account of the man. And she fed him secretly with bread for many days. And the soul of this man was revived. For when she went forth to fetch water, she would put out bread in the water pitcher. And when she came to the place where the poor man was, she took the bread from the pitcher and gave it to him to eat. So she did for many days. And all the people of Sodom and Gomorrah wondered how this man could bear starvation for so many days. And they said to each other, "This can only be he eats and drinks. For no man can bear starvation for so many days and live as this man has, without even his countenance changing." And 3 men concealed themselves in a place where the poor man was stationed to know who it was that brought him bread to eat. And Palith, daughter of Lot, went forth that day to fetch water. And when she put bread into her pitcher of water, and she went to draw water by the poor man's place, and she took out the bread from the pitcher and gave it to the poor man, and he ate it. And the 3 men saw what Palith did to the poor man. And they said to her, "It is thou then that hast supported him, and therefore he has not starved, nor changed in appearance, nor died like the rest." And the 3 men, did you notice, died like the rest? So obviously this was their policy, to let these people die. Continuing in Jasher. And the 3 men went out of the place in which they were concealed. And they seized Palith and the bread which was in the poor man's hand, and they took Palith and brought her before the judges. The judges entered the story. And they said to them, thus did she do, and it is she who supplied the poor man with bread. Therefore did he not die all this time, and therefore declare to us the punishment due to this woman for having transgressed our law. And the people of Sodom and Gomorrah assembled and kindled a fire in the street of the city. And they took Palith and cast her into the fire, and she was burned to ashes. Jasher, chapter 18, 25 through 35. Now this somewhat matches what Ezekiel said about Sodom in Ezekiel 16, 49 through 50. This was the iniquity of your sister Sodom. She and her daughter had pride, fullness of food, and abundance of idleness. Neither did she strengthen the hand of the poor and the needy. And they were haughty and committed abomination before me. So wicked judges were part of the problem in Sodom, it appears. Can you imagine imposing a death penalty on someone for helping the needy? Maybe in our democratic societies, we're going to end up seeing similar things. Maybe it will be the people who haven't taken the mark of the beast that will be starved. We shall see. And finally, we have the fourth level of criminal justice corruption. The weaponized government, DOJ, FBI, and CIA. Now, John F. Kennedy opposed the CIA and FBI, and we see where it got him on November 22nd, 1963. They murdered him. The cover-up of that crime, is still going on. Although these arms of government that we just mentioned have less direct impact on you and I in our small little towns and villages, they impact us directly. Just today, an FBI agent resigned for repressing the story of Hunter Biden's laptop prior to the 2020 election. In regard to the same story, Facebook indicated that they received a visit from the FBI prior to that election, telling them to be alert and to squash it because it was Russian disinformation, which Facebook interpreted as anything to do with Hunter Biden and the big guy. So, from top to bottom, our criminal justice system is being reworked and retooled to create a police state, one that will be used to facilitate the totalitarian globalist takeover that the Bible refers to as Mystery Babylon. In Revelation 2, Jesus warns believers alive at the time of this takeover, do not be afraid of what you are about to suffer. I tell you, the devil will put some of you in prison to test you, and you will suffer persecution for 10 days. Be faithful, even to the point of death, and I will give you life as your victor's crown. Revelation 2:10. This is a very important passage. First, notice who is behind all this. Jesus tells us it's Satan. The devil is doing this for his purposes. It's not a political party or a globalist billionaire. Satan is simply using these people for his purposes. Second, notice God is allowing this to test us. We know from James 1 that the testing of our faith leads to patient endurance. Quote, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking nothing. James 1:4. It is God's means of refining us in the last days. Are you emotionally and physically ready for this? Because it's coming. As we reported in a previous video, totalitarian takeovers often result in purges. In the 20th century, Hitler, Stalin, and Mao killed over 150 million people who opposed them. How many more will Mystery Babylon kill? We are told Revelation 17:6 says that Mystery Babylon is going to be drunk on the blood of the saints. They're going to be intoxicated, thinking they're winning by doing this. So who is preparing the churches for what is coming? For a totalitarian takeover. It should be obvious that since March 2020, a systematic attack on all phases of our lives have begun. Healthcare, media, law and order, military, economics, everything It appears they are working off a pre-planned list of things to accomplish. These things are being done to us, in my opinion. They aren't just happening. So again, who is preparing the churches for this? Since no one else seems to have stepped forward, Pastor Jake McCandless, Marquis Laughlin, and I formed Last Days Overcomers to reach out in a series of nationwide conferences to do just that. Our first 3 conferences are in Cincinnati, Springdale, Arkansas, and Minneapolis, Minnesota, and hopefully more are to follow. If one isn't fairly close to you, we're planning on doing online versions of the conferences with every moment of the conference plus live Q&A where you can ask us live whatever the Lord puts on your heart. There's a link to the first online conference down in the description. But our criminal justice system isn't the only area of government that is being totally reworked prior to the totalitarian takeover. Our money and financial systems are also being transformed to control our resources. Click right here to keep watching and learn about what the government is silently doing to digitalize our money so that they can control us. Till then, this is Nelson, and I'll see you there.